This way. Because he can see. Good evening. Welcome to Claude and the Banstas and a new show. I'm Levanja and this is Third Eye. Tonight we're going to be looking at new subjects. We've been sort of deciding on this for a little while now, talking about this for a little while as to how we're going to do it. And we've always wanted to do a conspiracy show. And I know a lot of people have been sort of asking us to do it. So we've decided to start it today. And the subject we're going to be sort of discussing will be 5G and Corona. Is there a link? Before we sort of go into all of that, I want to sort of introduce the guests I've got on today. So firstly, all the way from Vancouver, a special guest of mine who's been sort of asking to get on this show. He knows quite a bit about various different subjects. I've got Stan the man. How you doing, Stan?
Hi, Lev. Thanks for inviting me on, and happy birthday to you.
Oh, shucks. Stop it, man. Thanks a lot.
Did you have a good day considering lockdown? Bit of cake?
Cake and drink, mate. And that'll see me through. So thanks, mate. And another one of the Banstas, Shaheen. Introduce yourself, mate.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and also very, very happy birthday to you, my friend. And I hope you have a good one.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. And a big hello to everyone in the chat. I know I can see a few faces that are very familiar. You got Snedden, Melina's here again, Omar's here, Alex, Nick, all of you guys, Archie. So thanks for coming on. So, guys, I know that. Look, firstly, what I want to get across to the guests and everyone watching is, we're not here to sort of. I don't want to have a show where I'm sort of forcing information down people's throats and telling them that this is right and this is wrong. The whole point of this show is to debate, discuss, and really get our mental juices flowing. And there's no better time to be doing it. We're all in lockdown. So I don't want anyone to think that anything I say is gospel. We're going to discuss it. I've got my own opinions. I'm sure you guys will have as well. So I'll be interested to hear that. But so today I decided to start it with Corona and 5G link because for obvious reasons, we're all in lockdown. There's a lot of people being, getting ill. We're told it's a coronavirus. It's a mutated version of the corona. There's other theories out there, and I want to start off with what I've sort of been following over the last 15, 20 years. We all know now, it wasn't so popular back in the day, but we all know now about so-called Illuminati and elites in the shadows running the world. I've been sort of following that. I don't want to go too much into the Illuminati today. That's going to be coming on up-and-coming shows. I know Stan knows about that as well, and me and Shaheen have discussed that. But to set the tone, so we can sort of crack on from it. The Illuminati have what we call a New World Order agenda. That's the story behind it. That's what we've been told now. And that New World Order agenda is generally, to simplify it to everyone who might not know it, I don't want to assume people do, that this elite group, 1%, there's 13 families. We can go into that, as I said, another time. Their agenda is to entrap, enslave, and create a one world order. Right? That's going to be done through economy. It's going to be done through materialism, technology, music, hip hop industries, films, so everything that's geared up around us to create this sort of false world around us, like a matrix. That's the idea. Now, where the 5G and Corona could fit into this, and this is what I want to throw out there, is to achieve their final sort of, shall we say, parts of this plan, they need to enslave us all within this system. Right now, they're doing it, but they're easing us into it. That's how I feel. If you look at wars in the past, the problem with wars is this: if you try and take people by force, we have a natural thing within us as human beings to want to rebel. That's what we do. We'll fight back. So a long while ago, they've decided to do this via economy, technology, propaganda using news and radio and television and all these sorts of things to create this false world around us whilst they carry on in the background. Now, in order for them to complete this thing, this sort of agenda, they need the technology to do it. 5G is where this technology can be. So, for example, they're gonna the facts are what they're looking to do is crash the market, the economy globally. So that if you look at what Corona is doing right now, right across the world, economies are suffering, businesses are suffering, entrepreneurial businesses and self-employed people, they'll be suffering. So there's signs of that happening. Then potentially they could usher in a digital currency, which they will need this 5G technology for. Also, if you're looking around, face scanning masks are going up, so face recognition masks. If you need, as I said, if you need a digital currency, they're going to need this technology. So 5G is a far faster version of what we have at the moment. But the problem with it is it's very short in distance that it emits, but it emits far greater amounts of radiation. So the theory that we have out there at the moment is that this radiation could potentially be causing our illnesses. If you look at the stats, since mobile phones have come into play, cancer has been on the rise very, very steadily over the last few years. So I'm going to throw this out to you guys and see what your thoughts are. And, we could start to go into more details in a bit. So firstly, Stan, what are your thoughts with these sort of conspiracy theories, shall we say, with regards to 5G and all that? Do you think it's mass hysteria? Do you think there's anything behind it?
Well, looking at the whole of the coronavirus thing, I've read everything online. What is it? Where did it come from? How did it start? I've read everything online, from people eating bats, which I don't know why that always makes me giggle when I think about that. I just don't understand that one. To it was a biological weapon that escaped from a laboratory. That's the kind of range that I have heard about this virus. Until I started speaking with you, I would say, 48 hours ago? And you broached this subject with me. It was something that I was unaware of. So I took a little look into it yesterday and watched a couple of videos that I could find. And it really did drag me down a bit of a rabbit hole. Okay.
And how's that? In what sense?
Well, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but the connection that's being made between, I'm sure you're going to cover it in more detail, but I was looking at, well, what is that connection? And I kind of understood what they were making there. And then they briefly touched being done, who is behind it. But the last one that I wanted to find out was why. Why are they doing it? And that was the one point that I didn't really seem to get any clarity on.
Okay.
You see where I'm coming from? I understand the what and the who's. I couldn't really get my head round of what was the end goal. What are they trying to achieve with it?
Okay. All right. So we were discussing this yesterday. So they introduced what they called the World Wide Web, right? We were saying earlier, a couple of days ago, calling it a World Wide Web is quite interesting, because if you think about a spider, that's what it catches its prey in, a web. So if you look at the globe now, it's been the planet is basically there's an electrification right across the globe, and radiation and radio waves are going right across the globe. The whole point of this was to make the world a smaller place, hence we're easier to control. If everything's connected, everything is, we're able to be surveyed. Surveillance can be enforced. We already know they listen to all of our phone calls. So now your phone is a GPS tracking system. Let's be very honest here. We all know it. If you've watched the program Hunted, I don't know if you do watch it or if Shaheen watches it, but I don't know if you get it in Vancouver, Stan, but there's a program called Hunted where they have a mock sort of situation where 4 or 5 people, normally celebrities, are sent out, and their job is to try and get away from, I don't know, MI5 or whatever you want to call it, that sort of type of organization. And they have shown in that show alone that even your phone can be off, they can still track it. If you if you make a phone call from a what we call a bash phone, yeah, they still have the ability to tap into all your friends that they know maybe you have on your list, or through your Facebook. So everything's become interlinked. We've, in a sense, handed over all of our details through things like Facebook and social media. If you look at what the, I don't really want to bring up the Nazis too much, but if you look at what the Nazis did, you had the Jews or people in the camps had numbers to them. We're all, in a sense, now numbers. We're easily monitorable. There's certain words on phones that are flagged up. The minute you say it, they can listen into it. They now have computer systems that can, the minute a certain word comes up, they're listening to your call straight away. Everything is easily sort of monitored now. So this system was set up to monitor us. The end goal was to take away cash from us, so that then even if you go and buy something with your card, bang, they'll know what you bought, when you bought it, how you bought it. It's also used for marketing purposes, so they know what to give you next year, books, films. They can monitor what sells the most, and they'll keep force feeding us this stuff. But
well,
then
we kind of see a little bit of that now when you go onto Google to look at a pair of trainers that you might think of buying, and then you go onto another platform like Facebook, and all of a sudden on the side you're starting to see the trainers that you were looking at are popping up near you.
That's what, yes.
Buy them.
That's what they want, like an AI. They want to create AI, artificial intelligence. They want to have a system. I don't even know if you've seen the film Minority Reports, where he walks past advertising billboards and it pings off him. It recognizes his face. It recognizes who he is, what he buys, what he likes, what he listens to, what he's interested in. That's what they want to do. So this 5G technology is required to be able to enforce that kind of a system. Right, it needs to be fast enough and powerful enough to do it. So that's what they're looking to do. Now, in order for them to do that, they need to have the masts everywhere. But the problem with these masts is they have a short range, although they're quite powerful. So they have to have them every 100 meters. Now, the problem with that is they emit far higher radiation levels than normal masts, and that's where the health issues could be coming in, because there's rumors that if you want to get into it technically, we're all made up of electromagnetic currents. That's what we all operate off. Everything's interconnected. For us to have balance and health, all of these need to be balanced. The problem we're having, from what I've read, is these radio and magnetic fields that are being forced around by all of these signals and masks going everywhere are starting to cause an imbalance within our bodies, which is then creating the issues with cancers, mental health, all of these things. So you can't deny there's a rise in cancer, mental health issues, and illnesses right across the globe. So the end game basically is to enslave us into a system where there's no cash, everything's monitored. It's going to push us towards AI, artificial intelligence type world. They're going to have driverless cars, all these sort of things. And what they tend to do is tell us all the good aspects, but not the bad aspects. So if they put CCTV in your road, they're going to tell you it's for your security. But then on the flip side, they can monitor you. We can go into that a bit more. I don't want to leave Shaheen out. So Shaheen, I mean, we're only scratching the surface yet, mate. Yeah. But look, initially, what are you thinking?
My view on this is, if you look in the past 5 years, things has changed quite a lot. I think we are already being monitored quite a lot. Living in London, you're monitored all the time. London has the most amount of security TVs anywhere in the world. In China, they have a system of monitoring you, and there are social categories of if you've done something wrong, if you've been caught dropping rubbish in the street, it pops up on your file somewhere. In Sweden, I think they have chips in their hands. If you've got a government role,
there is a couple of companies that are already doing that.
Yes, I think that's if you've got a government role in Sweden. I must say that.
But you can't work for that company unless you have the chip. By the way, I've checked that out as well.
That is right. That is correct.
Yeah.
I think I'm in agreement with the stand over this coronavirus. I don't think it's come from a person eating a bat, because let's be honest, and I don't mean this in a bad way. They've been eating bats for a very, very long time, and they've been eating a lot of things for a long time. So how this has just come about is a bit questionable. Where has it come from? I don't know. There is a lot of stories out there. There's an experiment that has gone wrong. America's got something to do with it. Russians, and everybody's coming up with all sorts of stories. So I don't buy. There is something to this coronavirus. I can't pinpoint what it is. In terms of the 5G, again, I don't think that 5G. This is related to the 5G situation, and I'll give you an example.
Go on.
As I'm sure, I mean, some people may or may not know. I'm from Iran, and Iran is struggling really, really badly with the coronavirus, and we don't have 5G in Iran. So this doesn't add up. That hold on, they don't even have a 4G or 3G. I think Iran up to that
as well. South Korea rolled it out as well, I think, right? And I haven't heard much about them as well. So you got a point there.
So, but I mean, is 5G good for us? Does it have anything? All of these are conspiracy theories, and that's what they are, conspiracy theories. There is no fact out there that you say, listen, this is the evidence, fact. These are a lot of stories that some have legs to it, some don't. There's a lot of things that can contradict some of the stories, but unfortunately, there's so many of these stories out there, and nobody can really say this is right, this is wrong, this is the truth, this is not the truth. Because if somebody turns around and says, yes, 5G, let's do this, let's burn down the towers, let's do this, let's do that, my counter argument would be, hold on, I don't have it in Iran, and they I think third or the fourth worst hit country in the world with coronavirus. So that's my view on it. In terms of the whole Illuminati business and all that, I'm not really informed on it that much to make comments. I have looked into this a bit, but I think we are already heading towards a society where a lot of things are controlled. For example, if you're traveling in London, your Oyster card is registered. So you can be tracked through your Oyster card, your movements. If not, through your bank card. So if you tap in your bank to that underground point, that point is taking all your account details. Where is that going? What's happening with that? You don't know. And Stan mentioned it earlier, and that was actually the point I was going to make as well. If you go and if you logged in on your Google account and then you go and search something on Google, for example, as you said, trainers or whatever, next time that you're on a social media or something, it pops up. Or on a YouTube, if you're watching a YouTube, some of the adverts, they come up, it's related to certain things that you've looked before. So you think, hold on, where's the link? I personally don't like it. I don't like the fact that, I don't like to be controlled. I don't like people to have my information. I don't like to have these things. But unfortunately, if the society is going towards direction, it's very hard to go another way.
Now, up until, can I just say, up until yesterday, I thought that 5G was, just basically an upgrade on your telephone. Until I looked at it yesterday, and as I understand it, it will kind of make telephones a little bit obsolete. And what I mean by that is, if you want to book a taxi today, you pick up your phone, you may have the Uber app, you tap onto the app, you've got your account details in there, you order the taxi, it arrives. But what I heard yesterday is with 5G, if you want to get a taxi, you walk out your front door where all of these masts and cameras are, and you'll just basically say, taxi. You won't say it into a telephone, you'll just say it outside your front door. And then a taxi will come down the street, which will have a camera on it, which will recognize you, and it will pick you up and take you to where you're going. So if I'm listening to what you're saying then, Lev, are you saying that with this technology, which is about the control, which you're saying, similar to, like, for example, the Google searches, with them installing this 5G technology, are you saying that a side effect of this technology is causing the coronavirus, or are you saying that the 5G is being used on purpose to create sickness, to take a portion of the population out?
That's a good question, Stan. I don't have all the answers, mate. But look, there's two possibilities. Let's be honest here, right? it could be that the introduction of 5G is creating a health issue, or it could be if you was this elite group that wanted to take over the world, that coronavirus could have been created to take our eye off the ball while they're doing what they need to do, which is another possibility. So if you create a pandemic, now this is the thing, right? You're 100%. This is about control. That's what this is. It's about control. The only way you're going to be able to implement a system and a matrix and a technology to be able to it is a matrix. That's what it is. So in order to create the matrix that they require to implement the plans that they have in place, they need the technology. 5G is that technology. It's undoubtable. Like you cannot doubt that 5G, it's sort of, some say 10 times, some say up to 100 times faster, bandwidth wise as well, far larger than anything we have at the moment, right? It's a bigger leap. This technology has been used, as very similar technology has been used by the military to disperse crowds, right?
Yeah,
but disperse it, if you turn up the frequency, this is a higher level that the military use, but if you're able to turn up the frequency level, you can impact human health and mentality. You can do it. But at this stage, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to roll it out so they can implement the final game plan. I think what it's potentially to do is to crash the market, bring in a new currency, a digital currency, take away cash from us as a society on the whole, so that we lose all sense of control. If I come to you tomorrow, Stan, and I buy something from you in cash, 50 quid, no one's none the wiser, are they? No one knows where that money has come from, where it's gone. I've bought it, I've gone, no one knows what I've bought. If you implement this system, everything is monitorable. Now, you've got to ask yourself, why do they have and why do they feel the need to monitor everything we are doing? What is the reason? And then part of the thought process behind it is all these things that we're seeing, terrorism and all this sort of stuff is scaremongering, so that we are sort of beaten into submission and accept it for our own safety. Very much like what this coronavirus is doing. Let me throw something at both of you then. Let's just play devil's advocate. We create this coronavirus as being, it's out there, and suddenly they come out and say to you, oh, we have a vaccine. You, Shaheen, anyone else in this chat room, we need to know that you need to have this vaccine, right? So that the rest of the population is safe. So the only way we can know that you've had this vaccine is by either a chip or something that's in this vaccine to confirm that you've had it. So if you want to travel, they can scan you and know you've had the coronavirus vaccine and let you travel. My question to both of you is, if they were to turn around and say something like that to you, would you do it?
Well, I think it's already in place, something like this in Italy, where there's an app that they track your movement with this app. After I think if you're diagnosed and you're supposed to be indoors, they've got an app, but you get some benefits if for example, they'll tell you, listen, download the app, we're gonna monitor your health and we're gonna check where you are, but you get X, Y, Z in return. So there is something for you to get the app. So I think
they've got that in China as well, haven't they?
I don't know about China, but I think there is something like that in place already. Look, it's very difficult because we're all society, right? And if everybody is directing society towards, not everybody, if these so-called powers are directing society towards a certain direction, it's very hard not to go into that direction, because, as you said, if they are putting things in place in terms of taking cash out, then if I can't spend my cash, then I have to become like everybody else. I'm not one, or a lot of people. You can't go against the system per se. That is one thing. Another thing I wanted to mention earlier, and I forgot, and this may be a bit unrelated to your question, but I just wanted to make that point. When this coronavirus came about, US and China were about to do a big trade deal. and it was not going as planned. Right, it was not going as planned.
And also, China were having their issues as well internally. There was people fighting the establishment at the time, wasn't there? If we all remember, that's been forgotten.
That is correct. And there were commitments that was made by both sides that if they were not able to deliver on those commitments, there would have been penalties and they would have get penalized. Now, this came out very conveniently at the time that both economies now have gone down to the pump, if you like, and it's basically a reset button. Going back to the subject, I think there is something like that in place. If somebody comes and tells me, look, we need to vaccinate you, we need to do X, Y, and Z, it's very hard for me to say, no, mate, you're right, I'm not going to do that, when everybody else is doing that. And then it's going to be a problem for me. My life will become difficult. So that is my thought process on this. I don't know what you think, Stan.
Well, to answer your question about the vaccines, and if it had a chip containing, obviously I wouldn't want to have a vaccine. I don't even like to go and have the flu vaccine. But if they're going to make it in a way where, as you say, in order to travel, to show that you don't have the virus, you need to have the chip. In order to, if it's going to impede on my life, and it means like, for example, it's going to hurt me with employment, paying my taxes, paying my rent, me and my partner, we're trying to build a life together, then it's a case where whether you want it or not, you're going to be pushed into a corner where you're not going to really have the choice if you want to continue to have a certain quality of life. Okay. But I just want to pull this back a little bit, just to something that you were saying about the 5G. So do you think then that the reason that, the virus, the pandemic, are you saying that that's basically what's being used as the cover globally so that we're all indoors while they do the rollout of the 5G technology?
Yeah, that's my look. If you're asking my opinion, yes, right.
Yeah,
because
why do we need to be indoors while they're putting up the masks?
Okay,
you see what I mean?
You know what? Can I just say something?
Go on, Shaheen. Go on then. Yeah.
I think it could be the other way around, where the 5G business is a distraction of the coronavirus.
Do you think so?
It could be.
I don't see it, and I'll tell you why I don't see it. It doesn't make sense to the game plan. I'll tell you why it doesn't make sense to the game plan. For me, I've been following this whole pattern for the last 15, 20 years, right? The end game is always being to capture us in this matrix, one world order, one currency, one religion, one everything, right? Even the policing is going to be one. If you look at our policing system now, everything's interlinked. Back in the day, if a criminal left this country and scattered somewhere else, it could disappear. That doesn't happen anymore. All the policing, everything is all interlinked. All the networks are interlinked. Everyone can communicate with everybody else. I personally see it the other. If it's going to be anyway, it's going to be the other way around. I think the reason, I mean, going back to your question, Stan, you think why do they need us indoors? This is one of the theories, right? The problem with 5G doesn't go through solid objects very well. Okay. Now, if they had rolled this 5G out with these high levels of radiation being emitted, it would have grave effects on certain people, some more than others, dependent, right? Now, I don't know exactly why and how. Maybe it's how far they are from masts. I mean, I've heard of people that have them right outside their houses and suffer all sorts of illnesses, or trees that, don't grow. Or I've heard also in Sheffield, they cut down 13,000 odd trees. This is meant to be like a green zone, in order for this to travel. Now, firstly, how is that good for the planet when we're being taught about being green and all this sort of stuff? Secondly, because of the way it operates, and maybe what's happened is due to all the levels of illnesses that it's created, they've told us all to stay indoors. If you also so it doesn't have that effect. If you also realize they're telling us to stay 2 meters apart from each other. Another theory is they're doing that so that when they're putting the facial recognition scanners up, we can all be clocked, right? Because let's be honest. Let's look at it this way. They're telling us to stay 2 meters apart from each other, but then they're telling people they can go to work on the tube, right? Yeah. And it was jam packed.
Yeah.
So something doesn't make sense here. So they're saying this 2 meter thing could be so they could scan everyone's faces. If you look, they've put facial recognition everywhere now. This 5G is required for that facial recognition from the time it scans your face to tell them who it is straight away. That sort of speed is required with 5G, right? And that sort of
already in
power
place,
is required. No, not to the level. If you look at China, for example, you mentioned these apps and stuff. The reason they've managed to control this coronavirus is with this app where it recognizes your symptoms and you have to scan, or it scans you on a daily basis, and it knows where you are and who you've been in contact with, and all of this information is sent back to them, right? But in order to get the level of speed that they want and the type of society they want, they need a far faster system. I mean, look, we struggle sometimes with 4G with just our computers at home, right? Imagine what this thing is going to do.
Yeah, but Lev, look, the facial recognition thing, I don't think it should pick up faces in a crowd. That's what it's designed to do. For example, if they put it outside the Arsenal stadium, for example, there's no point putting it out there because everyone's going to be like this together. So it's not going to work because it's not going to pick up anybody. I think we already have this facial recognition in place, and I don't think this 2 meter thing is related to that.
You don't think that, but then others do. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, they have been put in London. Facial recognition is still pretty new. They've been trialing it over the last year or so, from what I've gathered. I haven't seen it everywhere. Plus, if you look at it, I mean, you're online to me now. Sometimes you come across pixelated. Sometimes other people do. Imagine with this 5G, it will pick you out. It has the capacity and the power to pick you out and zoom in on you, because they're also going to put. Apparently, there's plans for 20,000 5G-based satellite systems to go up into lower orbit that beams these signals down. So what we're going to be?
Isn't that an Elon Musk thing, isn't it?
I don't know if it's just Elon Musk, but
he wants to put those 25,000 low-flying satellites. I just heard about that.
It could be down to Elon Musk. But the whole point is the whole end game of this physically for us is, if you look at it, it's starting to affect us. It's starting to affect us with cancer rates. It's starting to affect us with mental health. It's starting to affect our well-being. And yes, population control does come into it, because to create the system that they want, they don't mind it lowering the population. That's always been part of the end game as well, to create a scenario. Now, going back to this whole vaccine and microchip thing, you guys saying, if it was to affect my life and I wouldn't be able to work and I wouldn't be able to travel, isn't that exactly what they would want, though? You to turn around and go, well, I want to remain in this system. I want to be able to earn money. I want to be able to go to work. I want to be able to travel. It's almost an enforced way of giving it to you.
Yeah, you either join or you get blackballed.
You either join now. If you look at the way these guys operate, it is like that, on that level, on that subconscious level. It's, if you look at any of the movies from and I mention movies and people will think I'm crazy, but they throw in subliminal messages through these movies, right? And these movies themselves and the industry itself is run by the very same elites that we're potentially discussing at the moment, right? They drip feed our upcoming realities. So things like Hunger Games and all these sort of films that you watch, look at the message behind it. You're in the system, you're all right. If you're not, you're a savage outside of the system and you're living that way. If you want freedom, freedom comes at a cost. If you're a religious person, it says, as we discussed yesterday, Stan, you won't be able to buy, sell or trade without the mark of the beast, right? This is where we're getting to. If you want to do it, and this is where apparently if you're religious, this is where your faith will be tested. The day will come where they'll say, right, this is your time. Do you want to come into this system? If you want to work in this system, you need to have this microchip vaccine. So we know that you've had it. Again, it comes with the benefits. It's for our safety, but really the bigger reality and the bigger reason behind it is to be monitorable. They've been trialing this chipping system out for a very long time. If you remember when there was endangered species, they were tracking endangered species for years with microchips under the sea, hundreds and thousands of feet under the water. They could track whales and all of these sort of creatures. They've been trialing it on animals for years. So that's where I think this is heading. I mean, it's crazy to say it, but
yeah, look, I agree with you on a point that this is a population control tool. This is something that I agree with you. This coronavirus, one thing it could have been used was to control population, because if we are going towards the direction that you are saying we're going to, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all, but if we're going in the direction that you're saying to, let's say people above 65, 70, there are no use to this new system. So if this virus comes and then gets rid of a lot of those people where there are no use to this system, and they all need to be trained up of how to do this, bring them around to the system, and then they're going to die a few years later, they might think, you know what, let's get the virus out, get rid of certain ages above, and then the young people can be stirred into whatever it is that you think we're going into. But you have very interesting points. As I said, these are not facts, but very, very interesting points. You know, something to think about.
It's very difficult to give facts, right? Because
I agree with you.
At the end of the day, if it was, you know, if we were all scientists, we could sit there and start looking at facts, etc. There are certain facts though, and again, Stan mentioned this the other day. There's been incidences where they've trialed out this 5G systems, and thousands of birds have fallen out of the sky. Right now, birds are migration animals. They rely on, like their own GPS tracking systems to know where to go. They've done it for thousands of years, maybe millions. They know how to migrate, when to migrate. They have GPS tracking systems. Also, how many whales and other sorts of creatures have you seen washed up on the beaches recently because they don't know where they're going? The theory is, because of the constant radio waves and electrical magnetic fields being sort of smashing around everywhere, it's creating this imbalance. And also then thousands, as I said, thousands and millions of birds have fallen out, not millions, but thousands of birds have fallen out of the skies, and no one has an answer for it. And that's when the 5G testing was happening. Okay?
So let me ask another question then, right? So I'm trying to put all this together, right? And it's the why part. So the coronavirus is a ruse to get everybody inside so that they can put up the 5G.
Yeah.
And the people that are getting sick, is that because they're getting side effects then from the 5G that's being put up?
Yeah.
So then do you think then that when the first reports were coming out of, say, Wuhan, and that's before obviously people had gone inside, no one had gone inside yet, those figures were then overinflated to cause a panic? So then they could then put out the rule, well, we've got to get you all inside, so they could then roll out this 5G technology. So then once they've done all of that, and they've put all of the 5G technology, they've installed it, and we all come back outside, then will more people then get sick because they're being even more exposed to it?
Yeah, they will. I mean, it could also be that obviously when you're implementing a system like this, you need to get the settings right and all these sort of things. So maybe they got to mess around with it a little bit. But yeah, 100%. I think that's why we're indoors. Let's look at the logics behind it. We can't sit here giving facts because the facts are very minimal behind it. And these big corporations tend to use certain scientists and certain specialists to give their okay and seals of approval. So when we try to find proof or facts, it's very, very difficult. But yeah, I believe what's happening is the effects of these masks going up is, one, it will lower your immune system. It messes around with it. It lowers your immune system. So if you're elderly, it increases your chances of dying of anything else. Like your little cat there, Stan. So yes, immune system gets compromised. but also you've seen youngsters being hit with it. And guess what? Some of the symptoms are headaches, dizziness, fevers, various other things I've heard as well. Very flu-like symptoms, very similar to what we're being told now. And that again is because your body, its balance goes because of all the waves that are being emitted. I mean, I've read somewhere in 1918 when the Spanish flu pandemic came out, right, which incidentally never came out in Spain, it came out in the US. That was when the very first time the globe became sort of
radar.
it was radar, electrified. You could say electrification of the planet, but also radio was global. It became a global thing. So suddenly people started getting sick rapidly. And it was a very similar scenario. Now you're having 5G going around, and again, people are getting sick. Now we're told people are not allowed to go out to work unless it's essential. Would you suggest that, I don't know, Virgin or Vodafone or whatever, would you suggest that during a pandemic, it was essential to go around putting in 5G masts and cables?
Right, yeah.
I don't think it is. Is it that important? I mean, there's a pandemic going on.
Have you actually seen yourself any of these 5G things going up, or has anyone sort of that you know has told you that they've seen it happening?
I have family in North London. Literally overnight, they woke up the next day. There's huge masts up, and these things are huge. And they're
right. Or is it on the top of a building?
No, right on the street,
on the road. Yeah,
right on the street, and they're huge and they're thick. It's like something from like a futuristic movie and they're going up fast. Now, also what I remember is when China did start this rebel and this sort of thing going on in Hong Kong, they were going down, ripping down phone masks and face recognition systems. So was that their reaction to China implementing 5G, for example? And this is why I think it's a bit strange that they're asking us to sit indoors while they're putting these masks up. What is?
Hold on, you're saying that the people in China were actually ripping these things out?
I saw footage. Yeah, in Hong Kong, they were ripping down. If you Google it, YouTube it, they were ripping down face recognition masks and things like that, cameras. Now, it kind of then
you'd have to say that if they're doing that, they in China they usually fall in line, don't they? They don't do anything.
Why have they suddenly decided?
There must be a good reason for it.
Well, it's a hive. Listen, the system is like a hive system they want to create. So you have like a queen bee system, which is their 1% in this circumstance, and we were worker bees. And like Shaheen said, elderly, they're not worth anything anymore. They're not sitting there earning you money, right? They're not sitting there contributing to society. So they're expendable, right? So if they go, they go. But ask yourself this. One of the countries you would definitely say was a hive mentality and were fine with it for generations is China, right? They've always had this. Japan's another one. They work, and that's it, right?
Yeah,
why all of a sudden are China rebelling the way they're rebelling just before this 5G is being implemented? Was
that in China or Hong Kong?
Very out of character for them to do something like that, right?
Yes, and obviously we're relying on media, aren't we? And the problem with media is, and this is what gets me with people. They go, "Oh, well, I saw it on the news." Well, hold on a minute. The news. If you look at who owns all the corporations,
there is nothing that is the truth or real in the news. It's
the news is owned by a very few, Shaheen.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
So if a very few own our news outlets and our media outlets, who can we trust anymore? Shaheen, you can go ahead, mate. Tell me. I mean, you've heard what's going on.
I think to start with, I think that what you're referring to in terms of the 5G post being burned out, I think that was in Hong Kong, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
it wasn't in China. Listen, as I said to you, for me, right. We don't. The only thing that I have to say to this is we don't have these 5G in Iran, but we're really affected by it. So this doesn't make sense to me. This is the thing that doesn't make sense to me.
That's the stumbling block for you. Yeah.
For me, that's what it is, right? So if what you're saying is right, how come my people have got Where is that coming from?
Where is it? Have they created the virus as a side tracking device or a smoke screen?
Possibly. In terms of what you said about the face recognition, I think face recognition has been here, and it's been here for a while.
This technology has been around for a while.
I remember a while back there was a legal challenge on Metropolitan Police on using this technology on people without them knowing. So they were using it without telling us, on us. And I think that's quite common, to be fair, police doing things like that. But these technologies have been here for a while now. So the fact that we all know, us three, everybody in the chat, everybody, we're all aware of face recognition cameras, what they are, what they're used for, who's against it, who's not. The fact that shows that they've been here for a while and everybody knows about it. But if regards to the 5G thing, for me, that it doesn't make sense. What you said, because there are countries, there are a couple of African countries that they've got the coronavirus. I don't think they've got 5G. South America, I don't think they've started to roll out 5G. How do you explain that? What's the relation to 5G and coronavirus there, where it doesn't exist? Is 5G a story to cover coronavirus? Is coronavirus an experiment that has gone wrong, or is this a weapon that has got out of hand? And now this whole 5G is the story to cover that up. All of this, it could be any of these things. Nobody can say it's this or the other. For me, all of these are possibilities.
Let's ask the chat box. We've been going for like 45 minutes now. In the chat box, if you think that there is a link between the coronavirus and 5G, put a yes. Or if you don't think that there is a link, put a no. I'd be interested to see what everybody's opinions are.
I'd be interested too. I mean, it's, you know what, like, I went to Sainsbury's earlier on and there was a massive queue outside. And I had people, there were people there saying they don't think Corona's the main issue. Lebowski 25 thinks it's a yes. I think London school, I think the virus has come out of a lab in Wuhan, not from 5G. Well, that could still back up the story that they brought out this virus to cover, to keep us occupied. That could be a potential. Melina, this is a race for hegemonic power by countries in the global north, such as USA. I mean, look, we know there's certain, Melina, we know there's certain countries that are in this sort of elite scenario. Look, we can't guarantee and say 5G has been caused by Corona or Corona is caused, is being, caused by 5G. But there is no doubt is I think this 5G coming in, there is a reason for it coming in. Cheddar's
there's a link.
Yeah, there is. No, but Corona is being used to justify martial law. Cheddar's has hit a massive point. Cheddar's, hello to you, man. I know you're Cypriot. Hi to you. Melina, I'll come to that point in a minute. There is a definite link. I think either Corona is like a smokescreen or there is some sort of link. I do strongly believe there is a connection with the technology we're using and our health, however. If you're going to ask me that, I will say 100% in my heart of hearts, yes. Look, I've had family members who have suffered from cancer. I know what radiation does to your cells. It mutates your cells. There's no doubt in that, right? Too much radiation mutates your cells, causes cancer. That itself is a scientific fact. That I know. So then when you're pounding us with radiation and radio waves on a daily basis, right? And if you look at the statistics from when mobile phones come out to the cancer rates back then to now, it's undeniable that there is a correlation there. 100%. And I don't think this technology is doing our health any good or our mental state. I think it's frazzling us. It's unbalancing our system. But I do believe that 5G has been brought in for one reason and one reason only, and that is to finalize this one world system that they want to create. That I strongly believe. Whether there's a correlation between Corona and 5G, due to that, then I'm not sure. But if you look at this, if you look at the way the world's going right now, small businesses are going out and bigger companies are buying out everything. You look at Costco's of this world and the Walmarts of this world. They're buying out the supermarkets all under one roof. Nestle, Coca-Cola buying out all the drinks, and other sort of businesses. They're all going to eventually be under a very few companies that run everything. And then that means they'll control our food sources, the actual products that we use, what goes into them. If a few control everything, that's where a problem comes in for me, because we were far healthier. If you wanted to go to a butcher's or a grocer's and buy foods from a local place, you knew where it was coming from. You knew that man had a source. He'd go to a farmer, he'd get it. Now that's not happening. Now it's being controlled. And if there is a bigger agenda and a few are owning everything, including what we eat, that's where you can start to look at it. And Cheddar's hit the nail on the head. That's what they want to do. They want to create martial law. This pandemic can create martial law. And when martial law comes in, and if anyone doesn't know what martial law is, please look into it. It's basically takes away anything that democracy gives you and puts you in the hands of what the military would potentially enforce in a warlike situation, which means anything goes. Your democracy goes. Well, they'll do whatever they need to do for the sake of the country or their society or the government or whatever, and then your rights are totally gone. Martial law can be enforced, and if it is enforced due to this coronavirus, then we're in trouble. That's my thoughts. I mean, do you two know about martial law at all?
Yeah, I mean, I know. I've never been inside a martial law situation, thankfully, but yeah, I know of martial law, and I don't think we are far off that in UK, possibly. I mean, I've seen things circulating around on internet. People in Brighton, the weather is good, everybody's out. They're gone by the seaside, and I think it's things like that will bring out the army and that will adjust towards martial law, because people are not respecting the guideline that has been put out there for whatever reason that has been put out there, whether it's the 5G, whether it's the corona, or whatever it is. But I see where you're coming from, Lev. These changes that you're referring to has been interacted in society slowly for a while, and we are now in a position where you can be outside of your home, right? And then you can turn on your heating, your TV, your stereo, your lights through your phone from another location. And that honestly is a bit not scary but worrying. That if we as common society, let's say common people, are having this technology to turn my lights on and off and this and that, you can just imagine how similar thing, but in a way advanced level exists, and who's got the control of that, for what purpose, for what achievement. So that's the worrying thing.
Well, speaking of martial law, I mean, my mother lives in Cyprus, and right now,
Really?
she can't leave the house. That's from 6 o'clock in the evening until 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, I've heard about that. Yeah.
My brothers live in France, and in France, even if you want to go and walk your dog, you have to go onto the internet and download a form that you've got to fill out.
Yeah.
So that if you are stopped by the old bill, you've got to be able to produce that form. If not, then you're in a bit of trouble. So, I think we've already seen martial law creeping in slowly. It's just some countries have got it more enforced than others, but it is coming in.
Well, Stan, look, I think this is like a test run, right? Look at what it's doing. They've told us to all stay indoors. We all stay indoors, right? They tell us that if we go out, we need to give them permission to go out. We need to tell them where we're going, how we're doing it, right? It's almost like it's a test run to see how we would react.
That's a very good point.
Do you see what I mean?
And can I just touch on that? It's a very good point.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Back in the 40s, 50s, I don't know if some of our listeners remember, the War of the Worlds.
Yep,
story.
brilliant film.
Wells.
Yes.
Yeah,
Go on, I'll let you explain it.
Well, originally that was a radio show that was read out on the radio by Orson Welles. But the way that they done it when it first aired, there was no introduction. They didn't say, next up is a science fiction show about aliens taking over Earth, read out by Orson Welles. It basically, this is back in the days when people used to sit around the radio. There wasn't any television. And, it was one of those ones where it was, our show has now been interrupted by a special emergency broadcast. And it just went into this scenario that Orson Welles was narrating.
Orson Welles, yeah.
Basically, that the planet was now under attack by aliens in various places around the world. That the military was mobilizing, and the people that were at home listening to this broadcast in the United States, they came out into the streets in the thousands, and it was the actual show. That show was funded, I believe, by the Rockefeller Foundation, and it was an experiment to see how people would react in that particular scenario. It was something that they'd been toying around with, and that's what they do. These organizations like the CFC and the Trilaterals, they're all think tanks, the Bilderbergers. They all sit around and they want to know how they're going to react in certain scenarios so that they're ready for the control. And that's what that whole exercise was. And people believe that we were being attacked by aliens.
Yeah, and this is what I think this whole scenario is. It's a test run for me. It feels like a test run. Something doesn't seem right about it. And whilst, if they beam to us that it's this and this is what the situation and this is what the illness is and this is what's caused it and we need to have, these vaccines and this, that and the other, they're testing to see how we're reacting. And from what I've seen so far, we've all been quite subdued about it. And we're all looking around going, okay, yeah, this is what it is. And we're just accepting it for what it is. I mean, Shaheen, what do you think? Test run. What do you think? Go on.
It's a test run for what? What is the goal? What are they looking to achieve? So they fine
to enforce a system and the society that they want.
You what?
To enforce a system and society that they want, where it's much more controllable, much more sort of rigid, and we're sort of very, very subdued in the sense of, can they control our reactions? Can they control us as a whole by just telling us a certain story via the news, via media? And from what I've seen, the answer is yes. If they turn around tomorrow and said this coronavirus, I don't know, they mentioned some other virus, would we believe it? From what I've seen, yes, we would. So basically, everyone is very trusting of the government. Why are we so trusting of the government? Why are you so trusting of the government?
What's the other option? What are you going to do? If they put if the army is out there, I'll put this to you. They said, you know what, UK goes into martial law. Not even that. We all go for a bit of a holiday, Cyprus.
Yeah.
Stan has got a property. We're all going to go there. We'll save the money on a hotel and everything. We go there, and they tell you, right, this time and this time, mate, you can't come out. What are you going to do? What are your options? What can you do? If you go out, you're going to get nicked.
Okay, so this is where it's very bizarre, because as a population on the whole, if we all decided to rebel, could they stop us all?
Come again?
If as a population on the whole, if we were
but that's not going to happen, Lev. You're never going to get, because there are percentages of the society that are you and Stan and me to a certain degree, where you question everything and you think, hold on, but why this, why that? And there are maybe a bigger percentage of society that will be like, oh, really? Let's stay in. We're not going out. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. They told us to do this. Yeah, okay, we'll do that. And if the majority are like that, and unfortunately that is the sad reality, then the minority will always be a minority, and it will go back to that movie scenario that you were talking about, that these are savages, these are this, and they're not law-abiding, because this is how you should be living. I know Stan is itching to say something here.
Go on, Stan.
No, I was just smiling because it sounds to me that Lev wants a revolution.
No. Hold on. I'm not inciting some revolution, but I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm playing devil's advocate. That's what I'm doing.
Do you think then that, I mean, if you're talking about, you know, martial law and military on the streets, you know, is it going to come to a time where the military would turn their guns on their own people? Because it's basically happening in Paris. And we touched on the media a few moments ago, and that it's a very small core that own all of the media conglomerates. And it's always, I've always wondered why we've had basically what's happening in France with the French people rioting. Also, at the same time, it's been happening in Hong Kong. But if you watch the news, and I used to watch the news from the Netherlands, now I'm watching it from Canada, I see a lot of coverage about what's happening in Hong Kong on the news everywhere, but I see very little, if anything, on the mainstream news about what's been going on in France and in Paris. And the riots in Paris have been going on for well over a year. And the
that's
police,
because the media's controls that.
And the footage that I've seen that people posted in certain groups on Facebook, you know, the police are basically beating up their own people with batons and gassing them on their own people. But we're not seeing it in the news. And I always wonder, why is the news happy to show us this strife happening in one place, i.e. Hong Kong? But why do they not want to show us what's happening similar in another country like France? What is the game? Do you see what I'm coming from?
Yeah,
why do we want to see one but not the other? What's the game?
Because if you think about it, the Chinese and Russians and certain other countries have always been painted out to be the boogeyman when it comes to the communists, right? And you have this, what the whole thing is about, divide and conquer. So even in our own politics, if you look at it now, you got our own people slating off each other. You're an effing communist because they prefer the left ideals, and then, you know, the others saying you're a Tory, blah blah blah, and we were all bickering with each other, so we were all divided. It's easier to blame the Chinese or the Russians. I mean, even recently with the Americans with their political problems, it was put down to Russian hackers, right?
Yeah.
It's not something new, Stan. The Americans have been using Russians as this boogeyman for a very, very long time, right? Oh, the Russians, the communists are going to come and get. I mean, I remember old films where, I mean, even Rocky 4, the Russians, yeah, and it took an American to go over there to give that big speech at the end. If you and me, we could. Do you remember that? Yeah. So, you know, and it was the baddies were always Russians, or what? It's, you know, this. I mean, going even further back, the Americans were the cowboys, the Red Indians were the baddies, and the cowboy was a hero. But if you look at history, it was a total lie. The British and the Europeans went over to the Americas, and basically there was a huge Holocaust and wiped out all the native Indians. What they tell us and what they beam to us is a lie. So I have no faith in them, and that's to answer your question. The Chinese and the Russians and all of that, they're the boogeyman. That everybody needs a blame. Everybody needs to blame somebody. So that's how they work.
So they're happy for us to see what's going on in, say, Hong Kong, because, you know, China want to get in there and they want us to see that, look, China are unruly. They're causing all of this unrest in Hong Kong, but they don't want us to see what's happening in France, because France is a part of Europe, supposed to be more civilized. They don't want us to see that the police are going in and, you know, hitting their own people and gassing their own people. And they don't want us to see that is happening there. Is that what you think?
100%. Look, what used to be an army, where an army was to protect the country, and if they went to war, it was to protect its own, is no longer what an army is. An army now is a corporate tool. It's a corporate tool. Governments are run by corporations who influence what governments do, and then the governments then, you know, say to the armies, go over there and invade this country, invade that country, and they use a boogeyman like a terrorist to do it. I mean, Cheddar's mentioned I'm a Cypriot, he's a Cypriot. I mean, look, I can go back to the history of Cyprus, 1974 war, right? The whole purpose of that island was it was very strategically situated. Okay, if you look at where Cyprus is, you can get to the Middle East like that, and you can come back very quickly. They wanted bases on that island. Fact, right? And this happened a few years before the war, but the Prime Minister then, a guy called Makarios, said, no, you're not having no bases. I don't want no bases on here. We've had a history of being part of the empire. No, right? So then, lo and behold, a terrorist organization come out of nowhere. Who funded them? it's been found out since they were funded by the British. Okay, suddenly there was a civil war internally, people killing each other, bombing each other, a bit like the IRA were back in the day. Then Turks got hurt, Greeks got hurt, everyone starts blaming each other, they start fighting each other. In the meantime, Britain and America come along, hey, let's stop this, we'll come and solve this, people are dying, come in, split the island in half, divide bases, job done. To date, that's where they're attacking the Middle East from, right? Same with Iraq, same with Syria, very, very similar tactics. There's a boogeyman there, we need to go and save everybody, but where do they hit first? Oil, gold, minerals, land. This is the armies. Going back to your question, I don't want to go into that too much because that's another podcast entirely. But going back to your initial question, armies and police no longer serve us, the people. Armies and police are to enforce on behalf of governments and corporations. That's where we're at.
I just say on that, I joined the army like many years. I used to be a soldier, and the one thing that always surprised me was that when I actually had to swear what you would be the equivalent of like a pledge of allegiance, you know, I put my hand and read off of a card. I wasn't swearing my pledge of allegiance to the United Kingdom. I was swearing my pledge of allegiance to the Queen of England. That's who I answered to. I didn't answer to people.
That's another entire. Mate. Listen, some people think colonialism's gone, Stan. It hasn't. It's continued. That's another podcast entirely. If you look at what's going on right now, the empire hasn't ended. The empire's grown. America was given birth by Europe. It would never have happened. It's an extension of Europe, right? And it's created the society we now live in as we speak. So it's funny you mentioned the Queen, and people think that, you know, the royals do not hold power. They still do have a heavy influence. And we can go into masonry and all sorts on other podcasts and connect the dots. Yeah. Shaheen, armies, police.
I'll go back a little bit earlier to what you said when you were talking about media.
Yeah, go on.
If you, I don't know if you noticed, but if you go back in history and pay attention, there is always a deflection story. Brexit is happening. And then boom, all of a sudden there's a story. What's happening? Iran and US are going head to head. There's going to be a problem. Something else is happening. They're going to bring a deflectory story. So media don't report, or people don't report about what's happening in France, where Stan was saying earlier. So I don't think this is anything new. The fact that media has been always controlled and it's very biased. So going back to that's my opinion on media and the story that comes in. There's always something to deflect attention from what really is happening to something else. In terms of armies and governments, the armies are there to do a job. If the rank of the soldier is that, Stan can tell me, if your superior officer gives you an order, you're not really in a position to refuse that order.
No, you're not.
Yeah, so if the order is coming from above, you need to go out there, you need to gas people, you need to shoot at people, you need to do this and that. It may not agree with you as a person, but you've got to carry out the order. Otherwise, that's where the treason comes in, I think, or you go against what you're swearing your allegiances at the beginning. So armies are also, there are orders that are coming in and they are filtering through different divisions to get to where it actually gets carried out. And it all goes back to the bigger picture. What is the achievement? What are they looking to achieve? Is it what you're saying? A new world order, a new process, a new way of life, a new society?
100%.
Or is it something else? Is it one world, one government, one bank, one currency?
Well, that's all part of the same thing, Shaheen. A new world order is, look, there's these guys have been going on for hundreds, maybe even thousands, maybe even 1,000 years. I don't know. I mean, if you look at the way it's worked out, there's always been a certain elite group that have always had that more technology, more intelligence than everybody else, and they ruled the masses, right? You had the Egyptians, you had the Romans, you've had before that you had the Persians. There's always been a certain small group that have controlled everybody else and had that little bit more than everybody else, right? The Greeks. It just continues like that. I mean, obviously you could say that's natural. That could happen. But where it starts to get a bit funny for me is, whereas back in the day, armies and police, they used to be servants for the people, right? Your local Bobby, he cared about you, right? He did it because he had to. I mean, you get good and bad in everything. You can't, you get bad police, you'll get good police. What's basically you see a trend now is they have shut down a lot of the stations around here, police stations everywhere. I mean, I've had a police station around here. Everything's being sold off. Everything's started to get privatized. Where you saw the local police now, there's less of them, and there's a rise. But then there's apparently what I've heard is they're going to look to privatize even police force. So they're going to sell it on to G4S, for example, security firm, right? When you decide to take away your local Bobby, your policeman, and you suddenly have security companies that are paid to do a job by the government, they're contracted to do a job, suddenly that police and the law doesn't matter anymore. You're seeing more and more increasing size of people just getting a ticket and not being able to do anything about it, or it's very, very difficult now for people to do anything about bailiffs, for example, come to your door. A policeman might turn up with the bailiff and he'll want to say something. You can see maybe the policeman's thinking, this ain't quite right. But he can't do anything about it. His hands are tied because there's a contract given out by the government for these guys to enforce what they need to enforce. And one of the end games I've heard is they are going to contract it out to G4S. And suddenly when that happens, they're working purely for the government. If they tell you to go and get this person, doesn't matter what he's done, whether he's within the rules or the law or whatever, he's been told to go and get this person and drag him in, they're going to do it. Why? Because they're being paid to do it. And these sort of things are going to be on the increase. And that's where less and less we're going to have our civil liberties and laws as we know it. And it's going to be taken away from us, and more they're going to be able to control us. That's what I think 5G falls into.
And you think all of this, the foundation of everything that you just said goes back to the 5G?
No, the 5G is the implementation for the technology they require to be able to control us within this matrix.
So that's right? The foundation of the requirement for the technology would be 5G. So you think basically this is the start where they're putting up the 5G to then start controlling everything that you just said? Everything.
Well, we're already being controlled. We're already being controlled.
Yeah, I agree. We just don't think you're going up a notch.
Yeah, 100%. What they've done is they've drip fed us technology. They've dazzled us with tech, right? So all we're doing now, when Facebook first came out, all anyone cared about was, oh my God, Facebook. If I came and knocked on your door before Facebook came out and I said, Stan, Shaheen, give me a list of all your friends, all your family members, their names, what their interests are, how you're connected to them, what school you went to.
Every now and then.
Yeah,
let me know whereabouts you are.
You would have said to me, "Are you mad? Why am I going to give you all of that?"
Yeah.
But what they did is they gave you this glossy thing called Facebook, and they said you could connect with all your friends and you can talk to each other. And so we willingly gave up all of ourselves to them. We gave it up to them, right? So now when you watch these programs like Hunted, they go through all your Facebook. They know all your friends. They know when you have your birthdays. They know where you frequent or when you go to bars. They know where you go to clubs. It's a more advanced version of what the Nazis used to do to you.
Let me ask you this then, right? They know what time I'm going to bars. They know what clubs I'm going to, what train I've just ridden on. What does that really matter? What are they using that information for, and how will that affect me?
Okay. Let's say it gets to crunch time. Let's say we go, let's fast forward and say they turn around and they say, right, you know what? We're going to implement this vaccine with a chip and this and all of that, right? You say, no, I'm not having that. I'm not having it, right? This is just one example. And you say, no, I'm not having it. And they say, right, well, if you're not having it, we're going to hunt you down. And you decide to do a run-up, where are you going to go? They're going to know everyone you know. They're going to know everything about you, and they'll be able to find you one way or another, either by your phone, either by a Facebook. So when it gets to crunch time, they know everything about you. It's basically an ID, facial ID system, and not just an ID system, your entire family, your entire network. So
if I'm not going out robbing banks, for example, then should I be worried? Should I even be worried? Do you know what I mean? They know where I go. You know, every time I go into a supermarket, they've got me on a camera. But should I be bothered that they know that I'm buying beans instead of spaghetti? Do you know what I'm getting at?
No. That's trivial stuff you're talking about.
But what I'm saying is, if I'm not up to anything, and they're just watching me, you know, what I'm buying, where I'm traveling to, what is their gain for hoarding that information on me? Okay. You know, for them to spend all of this money on this technology to gather up all of this information, and I can understand them. I can understand it for maybe high value assets like people high up in the military or things like that. But for someone like me and you, who, you know, we just normal 9-to-5 people, we have our jobs, we look after our families, we go down the pub, we might go and watch a football game. If they're watching all of that, why do they want that? And how does it impact them?
That's actually a very good point, you know, Stan.
Easy. Just from a marketing perspective, just from knowing what people want and what they're like and what their dislikes are. I mean, we go back, I don't know if have you ever seen Minority Reports, the movie? Have you guys ever seen it?
Yeah, that's a Tom Cruise one, right?
Right, yeah. Just from a marketing perspective, yeah, to make money economically, what does Stan like? What does Lev like? What should we sell him? Once the system becomes an integrated system with 5G, all of this is an information tool on you. So they could sell to you at any time based on what they know you've looked at, what you've liked, where you go, you know, where you go on holidays. It's all being built up and it's all being kept on a database.
But is that a bad thing?
No. I think the way to explain it, maybe
I'm kind of a bit devil's advocate here, but what I'm saying is,
I know. But
if they're gonna make it easier for me to shop, for example, they're gonna say, we know you like these style of trainers, so you don't even have to like browse for all of these things. Is that to me? I look at that as, well, maybe that would be beneficial, a benefit to me.
Yeah, but Stan, I don't think this is about. I don't think
asking the question correctly.
Yeah, you have, I think, but I don't think this is about you as a person. This is about, for example, if I have access to a very large database that Lev has collected, and Lev will be this a big agency that is controlling, and he can see. If I can go to Lev and tell Lev, listen, I've got this product, right? I want to sell this product. This is from just a marketing point of view. I want to sell this product. Lev knows everything about you. What you like, what you don't like. Yeah. Do you like this? Do you not like?
They'll sell it. They sell it.
He would just direct this to you through this advertisement that pops up on your YouTube, on your Facebook,
but is that Instagram. A bad thing?
Not necessarily, but this information can also be used in a wrong way. I'll give you an example. This whole company and the election that they had in the US, where did all that come from? Facebook. All the information that they collected from people on Facebook, and apparently they had something to do with the elections in the US. They got Trump in and all of those things.
Just touching on that, see, I never got all of that. You know, they're saying that the Russians interfered with the elections, that Trump was running to be president. And my question to that is, and maybe I'm just being a bit thick, I don't understand how Russia influenced people in America to vote for a certain person. How did they do that? I don't get it.
I think they
did the machines, and every time they put their ticket in, it marked Trump instead of the other guy. I can get that, but I don't understand how they would influence.
Yeah, no, I think they funded. I think they funded an entity that got in touch with this UK-based company, and they had a lot of people's details that they collected off of Facebook. And I think they used those for electronic voting or postal voting or things like that.
You mean like registering votes for people that didn't vote?
That's where I think that's where
apparently
that's where the thing was.
Okay.
But if this type of system didn't exist, then it wouldn't be easily manipulated. Do you see what I mean? Like the old school.
Where did all of this come from, Lev? It all came from Facebook.
Well, look, this is what I'm saying. I mean, you say, is it a bad thing, Stan? Right? I'll say to you, if I knew about you, if I took away your privacy and I knew everything about you and you didn't want me to know it, would you not think that was a bad thing?
Well, obviously, things like my PIN numbers and bank details, things like that, email addresses, phone numbers. But I'm not really that bothered if that I go to this club on a certain day, or I drink here, or I like these pair of shoes, or I like to shop for this style of music. I'm not really bothered by that, because even if it's being pushed towards me, I can still say, yes, I would like to buy that, or no, I'm not interested in that, and just move on.
All right, but once you've mentioned PIN numbers and all of that sort of thing, within this type of a system, once you've got a system like this, everything is accessible. If you know what you're doing on a computerized system, they'll be able to find your PIN numbers. They'll be able to hack everything. Whereas before they couldn't do these things, because everything is on a system now that's controlled. I mean, think about it. If I create a system that you have to subscribe to, inevitably you're going to have people that know how to run this system in the background and access whatever they want at any time. They built the thing. So they know how to open doors. They know how to go in and find whatever they want. So going back to your initial thing, without this system, they wouldn't be able to do this stuff. They wouldn't be able to find out this information on you. If someone wants to clone you now, or clone your details, or basically, if someone theoretically wanted to wipe out Stan the Man 68 from Vancouver, right, and replace him and have all his details and PIN numbers and bank information, they could do it. They could do it, mate. And that's because of this system, because we've given up all our information. Back in the day, our parents, my parents, they had a checkbook, they had their money in the bank, and if they went to draw it out, they had to go and draw it out, and that was it. They had to be there physically to draw out that money, right?
Yeah.
Don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
If someone wants to get into your bank account and take that money away from you, they can.
Yeah.
If they wanted to stop your account, stop you being able to travel, stop you being able to have a credit system, a credit file, they could do it just like that. And that's what this system has given. We've given up all our power. They've given all our power to them and all the privacy up for them, and they can control us at a flick of a switch. That's what I think, anyway.
No,
but
you're right. You're right. I think it's very interesting, but
please don't replace me with a clone. Please, anyone out there?
You're irreplaceable, Stan. You're irreplaceable, mate.
You don't want two of me running around.
Listen, going back to what you said, Stan. There is obviously a reason for let's say an ex society, a number of people wanting to have control, wanting to have all your information, wanting to control everything and everybody. That reason may not necessarily come to my mind or your mind or Lev's mind, because we're normal people. We don't. Does that make sense? We're not in a circle of where everybody is, that they know about this agendas, they know what they're looking to achieve and this and that. We're just normal people. We don't have anything to be worried about. Like personally, you're right. It wouldn't make any difference to me if somebody knows if I'm at home, if I'm at work, if I'm playing football, if I'm going out to meet Lev. I'm not doing nothing wrong. So it's all right for them to have my information. But if there is a bigger thing that we're not aware of, we don't know it, we don't understand it, and that's the reason they want to have everybody's information and everybody's whereabouts, and just control everybody. Because with control, obviously, comes power, and that's where it comes down to, I think.
Well, I mean, look what happened in Greece. 1 minute people had money in their accounts, the next minute they had nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Literally overnight.
Yeah.
They could do that to any of us if they wanted to. Now, if there is a global crash and all our money goes in our bank accounts, or look, money's not even money anymore. It's digital, isn't it? Like, you sit there with your phone and you go, I'm going to transfer this to that person. But all you're actually transferring is the digital version of your money. It's not real money anymore, is it? It's already digitalized. If they want to wipe that out tomorrow, they can. Right? They could do it. And that's where my concern is. We've literally given up all the power to one small section of people that run the entire world. If back in the day, if you had 100,000 grand under your mattress, don't matter what happened with the banks, you still got 100 grand under your mattress. That doesn't work anymore. So it's a whole different, mate. To be honest with you, it's a whole different podcast, and I'd like to go into the Rothschilds, the Bilderbergs, the Rockefellers, Illuminati in a lot more detail, and who owns what, and all of this sort of stuff. I mean, we've digressed a little bit because we were talking about 5G and Corona. It's easily done. Personally, though, going back to the original point, I do think there's something sinister. I can't 100% tell you what it is. I do feel like it's a test run. I do feel like there's a bigger reason for all of this. And the only time it's really going to come out in the wash is when we see what their next moves are. If they turn around and there's a global a recession, which I think is going to happen, that's what I believe. And then they turn around and they implement digital currency and take away our cash. And then they turn around and say, we need to take this vaccine. And this vaccine has a tracking device on it to prove that we've had it. That's when I start to think, hey, it's time. Do you know what I mean? And that's where the concern is. And that's where, for me, things like Bibles and Qurans and all of that, I don't read them from a literal sense. It's not, people read them from a literal sense. I think they're more coded. They're trying to tell us things, everything that's happened has happened before, in a way, right? I think this whole Revelations thing with the mark of the beast and in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, which is the Illuminati symbol. If you think about it, they're the kings right now. We were walking around sleeping like zombies. That, to me, is a code, and it's telling us what's coming next. That's how you should read the Bible. But we'll touch on it on hopefully next week. Go on.
You said about what's about coming next. Then, so I wanted to ask you your opinion on both of you. When we come out of this hibernation, this isolation period, do you think that the landscape is going to look remarkably different when we come back outside, or do you think it will be more gradual?
Do you know what, Stan? It's funny you say that, right? Because I thought everything was happening. Look, there's a program on BBC. If anyone's ever seen it, never seen it, go and watch it. It's called Hypernormalization. It's almost like, if you think about 100 years ago, many of us still had horse and carriage, right? In some places. All of a sudden, we're walking around with the ridiculous technology, whereas the development prior to that was far slower. There's some sort of push for us, a hyper-normalization for us, and apparently they've got this technology from somewhere. That's another podcast. Where is this technology coming from, and how has it come so quickly? That's another thing, and people will mention reptilians and all this sort of stuff. That's crazy. There's loads of things we can discuss. But in short, what I'm trying to say is, it's come really quick. I think it's going to come quicker than we imagined. I don't think after this, life's going to be back to normal. And I'm shocked to say it, because I thought it was going to take a lot longer. I thought it was going to be, but the theory behind it to many is 2020 has been written, hence the word 2020 vision as well. I mean, obviously it's used from an optical perspective, but clarity 2020, which is now, there's meant to be a massive awakening. And if you talk to a lot of people globally now, there's a lot more people that are clued up on these things. And I'm looking at the chat rooms and all of that. People are a lot more knowledgeable of this stuff, right? So people are starting to wake up to it. So now they've decided, oh my God, we need to implement this now. It's now or never. Because if they don't implement this system, we could still have a bit of room to maneuver. So I think they've just hit us with it hard. And while we're sitting there worried about coronavirus, they're implementing this thing. And answer your question, I don't think it's going to be the same after this. I'm actually starting to say it, mate. Shaheen?
No, I 100% agree with you. I don't think the society as a whole will ever be the same again than what it was before, because there are now a lot of things in place as a result of this virus, and that has changed things. It's changed the way we see things, changed the way we shop, it's changed the way we go out, it changed the way we look at different people, it changed the way we behave. And when does it finish? If it finishes, things I don't think will be the same again. What's your thoughts on this?
My thoughts on I'm more of if you're talking about the coronavirus itself, I think it's something that was either escaped from a laboratory or was concocted in a laboratory for some kind of nefarious deeds. Regarding 5G, from what I gather, scientists have said that they are concerned about the effects on humans and that they don't believe that enough testing or adequate testing has been done. So I am worried about that. Are the two connected? I've only just found out about this really recently, so I would need to get more research. But I've definitely taken away from this discussion this evening, a lot of food for thought. But another question I'd like to ask, and it's probably my last question actually, you mentioned earlier, Lev, about this being perhaps an exercise of those above us. Do you think part of that exercise could be to see how the population reacts to being handed a flat rate wage from the government?
That could be another part of it, Stan. It could be a test on many different levels. These guys are extremely intelligent and extremely patient. And we've discussed, you knew about Adam Weishaupt 1776, right? Yeah. They've implemented it from then. And it's like every generation passes it onto passes the lantern onto the next one and the next one. And each generation has their task to complete, to pass on to the next lot. And they've been doing this for a long, long time, right? So, yeah, I do think that's part of it. And I mean, mate, it's difficult now. I mean, how are they going to implement this universal credit across the board for millions of people who are not working? They just about do it when people are normally not working at a small percentage. There's going to be a lot of people suffering financially. I think what they like to do is they thrive on our fear, and they use fear to change our mentality. So everyone is now scared. They're scared for their money. They're scared for their family. They're scared for their health. They're scared for everything. So if you then offer a solution that's better than being stuck indoors all day, even though it might have not been as good when society was normal, you're going to take it. It's like before there was a war in the country, you might have not accepted certain things. But if someone's bombing you on a daily basis and then one day says to you, hey, Stan, we'll stop bombing you if you accept this, suddenly your expectations of what you would expect are far less. So that's a massive point you've hit on there. Once we've experienced something like this, and for some people it can be traumatic, what are we going to be willing to accept? Are we going to accept the vaccines? Are we going to accept less money? Are we going to accept a different type of currency? Are we going to accept a different type of healthcare system? Everything is potentially on the table. This is how there's certain things they call red flags, right? They'll create something. For example, I don't want to touch on this now, but 9/11 is one example you could use. Look at the knock-on effect from 9/11. I think it was Claude the other day said, the world has not been the same since 9/11.
Yeah.
But what my vision and what my version of 9/11 is might be something different to you. But I've seen since 9/11, there's been a knock-on of events that you cannot deny. And for me, they're taking us in a certain direction. If you look at it and join the dots since then, they're taking us in a certain direction. And it makes perfect sense to say, well, this technology that they're bringing in is connected to a point where they're going to create a system that is going to give us this one world order matrix type system that we're all going to be sort of trapped in. So that's how I see it, mate. 100%. Shaheen, what do you think, mate?
I think it makes sense what you said if Lev's theory is correct. Because if we're going towards that direction, then yes, you will be right in saying part of the exercise would be, look, an exercise is to test different things. And one of the things that would be a subject of a test is finances and how people react to different things. And if they bring in everybody to the same level, which I think it's going to be very hard to achieve that. Then yes, you're correct in saying this could be part of the test because everybody will be on a similar sort of level. but implementing that is hard because this universal credit system is not really happening now. There's a lot of people that are just not getting a response from it. So, that test is not really happening, or unless there's something else to it. I know a lot of people for a fact that have applied for this, but they have not been able to get through because of the sheer volume of people trying to get through. They have not heard anything from them. There are obviously no appointments to go to see anybody because everything is locked down. So if you're saying that is part of the test, it's not really been well managed.
See, look, I think the best way for us to look at the end game over the coming weeks when we do some more of these shows is to go back to the beginnings of who, why, and where, and what the end game is. And then when we probably look back at this podcast in a couple of months' time, you might start to think differently because you'll go, hold on a minute. Okay, so this is who they are potentially. This is what their whole goal is. I mean, one of them is I've read is to get rid of countries in general, different identities, and to split the world up into 12 separate states rather than loads of different countries. And if you see, in every country is slowly losing its identity and getting swallowed up in this whole westernized type system. And if you're not with it, then they'll deal with you differently and maybe do it by force. But generally, the system and the societies are changing everywhere. Pop music and this and materialism, and it's all one type of world we're living in. So, in the coming weeks, what I'd like to do, Stan, if you enjoyed it and you want to come back, what I want to do is start going back to who and why, who the Illuminati are, who these ruling families are, and go into them in detail and look at where they've gone and historical events that have happened, pivotal points that have changed things along the way, because this is one little subject here. We're looking at it and it's very difficult to ascertain. I'm not an expert.
Stay on one path sometimes because there's so many little offshoots to this.
But one can't live without the other. It's all well and good. I could say to you, no, definitely this 5G this is related, is a coronavirus, but then you'll go, why? And then unless we go back to look at those dots and come back to this maybe in a couple of months and then go and do another one and say, do we think it's connected? That might be something to do. And I'd like to do that. And I don't want to keep everyone on here too long. But I think that's what we're going to do. I mean, I think we're going to probably wrap it up now. But what I want to say is, guys, if you're interested in the chat room, let us know and we'll do another one of these. I mean, today was like a tester to see whether or not people will be interested in it. If you are, please like, subscribe, comment, let us know. We're going to go into,
as well.
Share as well. I want to go back into deeper subjects and even back into history and where it's all come from. And then we can go back to it. I mean, so look, it was a pleasure having you guys on. I'm sorry I can't give you all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I'll be a liar to say I do. We don't know. Some of it is a guessing game, but I do know there is an agenda. That I do know. I do know there is certain things that it's easier to look back, guys, because you can look at events that maybe they were saying, no, this isn't what happened. But historically, as time goes on, there's evidence and you can research and you can find out facts. Where something happened currently, you can't do that. It's a guessing game. But if we're looking back, it's easier to look up facts and find out sources. So that's why those subjects will be easier, I think. I mean, Stan, mate, I mean, what do you think? And have you enjoyed today?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, hopefully over the next few weeks or so we can give Alex Jones and David Icke a run for their money.
No wish.
if people
Masons and all of that, 100%.
If the listeners have enjoyed, this is the first one, and it's very quiet at the moment. So the guys invited me along to try and have some different conversation rather than just talk Arsenal all of the time. But if there's anyone out there that you have any subjects that are in the paranormal or conspiracy theories that you'd like us to talk about, let Lev know. And if you are, if there's a certain area that you feel that you could maybe even do to present on, something that perhaps in your spare time that you've researched a lot and you're happy to talk about, whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's the Mandela effect, anything in that sort of realm, the Illuminati, I'm sure if you reach out to Lev, we could get something arranged as well.
Yeah, you can find me on @Levanja. So anyone who wants to follow me or Stan the Man, or if it's Shaheen's not got, he's up here, but yeah, Shaheen's got one too. Follow us, drop us a DM, and if you've got any ideas or any subjects you want us to cover in the coming weeks, we'll do it. I do want to go into Masons, I do want to go into Illuminati, I do want to go into lots of different areas. So keep it coming, Shaheen. Talk.
Caught me off guard.
We've been talking non-stop, mate, and we left you alone. I'm sorry, mate.
No. It's always, it's interesting to do these podcasts because, one thing we want to do in this channel is not just football and Arsenal, especially times like this. We want to discuss different things, different topics, different programs, and yeah, you guys will help us a lot by commenting, sharing, liking, and we appreciate you guys spending time, following what we do and watching our shows, and we hope that you guys liked it, and this will be one of many to come. I know Lev holds this topic very close to his heart, and he's got a lot of interesting things planned, and hopefully it will be good, and we can come back with bigger and better things, and we'll put Alex Jones to shame. I have no doubt about it.
I wouldn't go that far, but look, with other subjects that we got, other topics we got coming up, there's a lot more factual information that we could present. With this, it's now, it's here. What can we prove? Until this is something that maybe in 50 years' time, historically, we'll look back at it and it will all come out in the wash, and we'll go, "Oh my God!" How many things in history have we seen? People thought healing processes, cigarettes, was once deemed healthy by doctors. Why? Because it was profitable for corporations. People were smoking it everywhere, didn't even know that they were killing themselves. That's just one little example of how we can go back and look at things and cross-reference with things that have already happened. This subject was very difficult, but I thought we'd start with this subject because it's the here and now, and it's very sort of grey at the moment. And I wanted to hear what Stan was thinking. I wanted to hear what Shaheen was thinking. But yeah, Archie was saying alcohol as well. But guys, look, thank you for coming on. It's been a real pleasure. Stan, I love the Flash t-shirt, by the way, mate. And without the glasses, you probably would look like the Flash. So, mate, we'll talk some more, and I want you to come on. We'll talk about the subjects that you're more well versed in. Bigfoot was one. Bigfoot for me was always a bit a bit of a myth, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on that as well. We'll touch on some fun subjects too. It doesn't always have to be dark and gloomy, and we're all gonna.
Let me just say to everyone out there: if you're looking for something really good to watch, and you like the Bigfoot subject, and you want to see the best, clearest pictures of a Bigfoot, on Netflix, there's a show called Discovering Bigfoot by a man called Todd Standing, who I'm trying to see if I could get onto the channel in the future. Watch that. His film, his videos, and his photographs of Bigfoot, the experts that he's taken out with him, it will definitely give you some food for thought that Bigfoot's alive and well.
What was the name of the show again?
It's called, I think it's called Discovering Bigfoot, and it's on Netflix, and it's by Todd Standing.
Not with the Hendersons at the end, not Bigfoot and the Hendersons. Do not watch that, Shaheen. No. But look, that's what, as I said, I want to cover some fun subjects too, and there's also other things like Atlantis and things like that. Do you know what I mean? We can really go into lots of different subjects. So I look forward to it. Hopefully there's enough people that are interested in it to carry this show on. We have got a show tomorrow that I'll be hosting, which is Mind Matters, which is a subject very close to my heart, which is mental health related. That's tomorrow at 7 p.m. And that's going to be myself with our resident specialist expert from Happy as Larry Group, Alex De Silva. So, you guys that are struggling at home at the moment, it's a very difficult time, especially if you're suffering from depression or any sort of mental health related sort of issues or illnesses. Come on to the show tomorrow, 7 p.m. and we'll be discussing lots of different things and coping mechanisms. And we want to find out how you guys are coping with it too. So please come on that show. So Shaheen, do you want to say anything else before we wrap this up?
No, that's it, man. You said everything. All good.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you, mate. Thank you for coming on, Shaheen. Stan, thank you for coming on. I'm Levanja. You'll get me at Levanja. Please subscribe to our channels. Please like, and any comments, please feel free to to drop them in. And we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you guys tomorrow and maybe next week for this show. So peace out to everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. And thank you for having us. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.